All right. Welcome back to the newest episode of the New Year's Six podcast. Today, I'll be continuing my 2024 conference preview video series. I've already done the ACC, already done the Big Ten. Today, we're moving on to the Big 12, another new conference with a whole lot of new teams. Two teams out. I think it's four teams in, and still four teams coming in from the year prior. Very new territory for a lot of these guys, very new opportunities for everyone involved, and really looking forward to seeing how it comes together this year. If you have not seen any of the previous videos, how this format works, I'm going to start at the bottom of the conference, work my way to the top, the top tier contenders, and I'm going to highlight a player on offense and defense that I think is due for a big year, due for a breakout season. Maybe someone who already has put their name out there on the national spotlight. Maybe it's a younger guy that's looking to make a name for himself. Either way, it's that type of vibe on offense and defense for every team. So kicking it off on in what 16th here, is that I think that's how many there are right now, right? 16th. So if we look at 16th, it is it's not going to be one of our new players, but it is going to be, or one of our new teams, but it is going to be someone that is fairly new to the conference, someone that hasn't succeeded just quite yet and is looking to make a little bit of noise eventually, but I just don't think that's going to be this year. And that to me is going to be Houston. First year head coach Willie Fritz got his work cut out for him. They came in 11th out of how many were in there last year? Was it 14 minus 2 plus 4 would get it to 16? Yeah, so there were 14 last year. They came in 11th. Not a great year, 4-8, and I don't expect much better. I honestly expect them to regress this year. It's going to take a little bit of time for Houston. But 4-8 last year, air raid offense, 4-2-5 defense. And then we'll take a look at their roster. So looking at their depth chart, just go position group by position group. O-line is going to be rough. Not a lot of experience coming back there. They got a couple on the right-hand side that come back. Tank Jenkins and Shamar Hobbs-Lee have a little bit of experience there. But a lot of the depth they bring in, or a lot of the transfers they bring in, reminder, anything in gold is a new player, whether it be a true freshman or whether it be a transfer. So a lot of the transfers they bring in are depth pieces, it looks like. And when you're already a team that's struggling for star power, depth piece is not the answer to your success. The tight end or the receiver room is another one that I think is going to be below average. You bring in Malik Carr, tight end from Michigan State. You do have Joseph Manjack, who I think can be legit for this program. He can be your number one guy, but outside of him, it's hard to see who their number 2 or number 3 is. It's a very top heavy receiver room and not a lot of depth there. Maybe those transfers they bring in can step up to the plate, but if we're looking at the starters, I haven't seen anything yet that makes me believe that that's going to be the case. Donovan Smith is solid at quarterback. Donovan Smith is going to be an average to above average quarterback in the Big 12. I got a lot of respect for him and a lot of faith that he can be the leader that Houston needs on offense. It's more so the pieces that he's surrounded with. So I think if this team is elevated, by anyone, it's going to be by Donovan Smith. And then the running back room is inexperienced. You have Parker Jenkins starting after a true freshman year that was promising. But again, we need that full-time opportunity to see what he can be like. So a lot of questions on the offensive side of the ball. Defense should be better. Defense, I think, is going to be a little bit of a step up. Outside of the D-line, I think, has got some problems. They do bring in Keith Cooper from Tulane. They have a JUCO transfer at the nose tackle there, Xavier Tillman. And really, the pieces that they bring back are not, super impact players. They're or let me rephrase it. They're not super experienced players. Is probably fair to those guys. They haven't made an impact yet. So when you're looking at depth and performance overall, and we haven't seen any of that yet, it's going to be hard for Houston to be good along that D-line and get that pressure that they're looking for. Now, the linebacker room is solid and the DB room is solid. I will give them credit where it is due. You do have a dynamic 1-2 punch of Michael Batten and Jamal Morris. You bring in Michael Batten from ULM. I think that's a good pickup from the group of five to the power five, I think he has the opportunity to make an immediate impact. In the DB room, it's a lot of the same. You bring in um, Hershey McLaurin, who comes in from West Virginia. You bring in Kristen Davis from Southern. You bring in Brian Massey from SMU. You combine that with AJ Halsey and Latrell McCutcheon, who already impact pieces in their own right, especially AJ Halsey. He's that lockdown safety that you need as a young team. So defense is a little bit more promising on this Houston team. Offense has some more questions, but if we're looking at our breakout players, starting on offense, I'll go, to the D line. I'll go with Caden Bowie, that left guard there. Not a ton of experience, redshirted last year, played sparingly, projected now to be a starter on the O line. It's going to be something that Houston needs instantly. They're going to need that instant boost, and they're going to need that instant impact from a younger guy on the offensive line. If you can do it, then Houston might outpace their predictions. If he can't live up to the expectation, then it's going to be a long year for Houston. I think he can. I think that Bowie is going to be that guy that anchors down the left side of the offensive line for many years to come for Houston. They might have their next star offensive lineman in the making. It's just going to be a matter of time for tell. On the defense, I will go with Xavier Stillman. I know I talked about him transferring as a JUCO player. The way that I look at it, if you're good enough to go from junior college to starting at a Power 5 school, you've earned your stripes. And the projection I have is that Xavier Stillman will be the starting nose tackle for Houston come August. And if that's the case, it's going to be an earned position. It's going to be something where he steps up to the plate and delivers for a D line that needs this badly. So I think he's going to be able to do it. I think he's going to be able to showcase his skills and understand why he has come in to be that starter for Houston. So Caden Bowie on offense, Xavier Stillman on defense for a Houston team that I think is going to continue to be towards the bottom of the conference again this year. Now, as we head to 15th place, it's going to be another team that came in on the same wave as Houston that hasn't necessarily lived up to those conference expectations yet. And I think it's going to be another tough year for them, and that will be BYU. So Kalani Sitake comes in. They've been, not in a conference for the majority of his career at BYU. Last year, first year in a conference, they did okay, 5-7, not bad. You want to see them grow and develop a little bit, and I just don't think that's going to happen this year. I think it's going to take time. I think it's going to take patience at BYU, and it's tough when your biggest rival is now in the same conference as you, i.e. Utah, and they are projected to do very, very well year after year after year. So at a certain time, BYU will catch up. I just don't think it's going to be this year. And on the we're looking at the depth chart, looking at the offense actually has some pretty promising pieces. The O-line is pretty experienced. You got 3 returning starters with Waylon. All right, let me see if I can get this in one shot. Waylon Lapuaho. You have Connor Pay at the center. And then on the tackle, you have Caleb Etienne. So you got 3 out of 5 starters coming back. And then Braden Keem is a fairly seasoned rotation / starter in the past. So I look at that and I think that's a reason to be hopeful for BYU fans. I think the receiver room is even more reason to be hopeful. Keanu Hill is a magnificent tight end. He is a true red zone threat. And you put that up against, Chase Roberts, you put him up with Cody Epps as well. It's going to be a pass-heavy attack for BYU this year. Now, that being said, they do have a new quarterback that they're trying to break in with Jake Retzloff. Very curious to see how he adapts. And then they have LJ Martin, who had limited time as a true freshman. Those are the 2 pieces I'm less confident in because we've seen less of them. But you have an O-line that'll be top 5 in the conference. You have a receiver room that'll be top 3 in the conference. That's a big get for BYU, especially as you're building your program in a new conference. On the defensive side of the ball, it's not quite as top heavy, but the weaker positions are not quite as weak as well. It's a little bit more thicker on the middle, where the D line is above average. I don't think it's going to be top five, but it's probably going to be close. And when you factor in guys like Tyler Batty and Isaiah Bagna, those two on the edges there are a problem for opposing offensive linemen. So you got two real threats there that can make an impact and make a difference. And I think John Nelson is right on the edge of being that type of threat as well. So 2 to 3 solid to more than solid pass rushers is going to create the pressure that you need if you're BYU. The linebacker room, I think, goes closer to the average there. You bring in Jack Kelly from Weber State. You combine that with Ben Bywater, who I think is going to be one of the better linebackers in the conference. But outside of him, the team experience is not perfectly present. So just curious to see how the pieces around him live up to the expectations. And then the DB room, I think, is going to be a little bit below average. You also bring in Marquis Collins from Weber State, and you line him up with a few promising pieces: Talon Alfrey at safety, Jacob Robinson at the corner, Micah Harper's your lockdown nickelback. So there are pieces that showcase what BYU could be. And, as far as I'm concerned, they're very promising. So it's just a matter of, can they live up to those expectations? And then can they rise to the challenge that BYU has in store for them? On the offensive side of the ball, the breakout player I'll go with quarterback. I'll go with Jake Retzlaff. So if we look at some of his numbers from last year, had 173 yards passing and 2 TDs against Oklahoma, had a 2 rushing touchdown performance against OK State. So, potential pass threat, potential run threat, dual threat type of guy. Curious to see how defenses contain him. Curious to see if they're going to put a spy on him the whole game, and if so, what does that open up for BYU? Because if one guy's going to be 100% on him, that means there's 10 guys that are occupied elsewhere. So how does that work if you are BYU? We'll find out. But I did want to show off one of these throws against Oklahoma. So if we look at, he drops back, stays in the pocket, finds this guy instantly. I mean, it's a good move on the receiver. I'll give him credit. It's a little, out route there. Let me play it back one more time. So just in motion, calm, gets his guy. So that's the type of throw that you would expect from a Power 5 starter, for a QB. So if he can do that consistently and he can do that every single, week in and week out, BYU is going to be in it. I don't know if they're going to win all of these games, but he will be a contender, or he'll keep BYU as a contender in all of those games, regardless of the end result. But I think Jake Retzlaff is going to evolve and to blossom as a quarterback, and he'll have the experience this year, especially with a O-line that can protect him and receivers that can catch for him. On the defensive side of the ball, no, we did you already. I'll go with Marquis Collins. So again, transfers in from Weber State. Very limited availability and statistics on him. Again, Weber State is at the FCS level. I don't follow FCS ball, but if you do, from what I've seen, he's had some breakout moments previously. Just want to see how he can do that at the Power 5 level. So again, if you can transfer from FCS or junior college into a Power 5 starting role, you've earned it. And I think Marquis Collins is going to live up to those expectations and be the corner of, not the future because he's a redshirt senior, but make the most of his last year of eligibility and be the corner that BYU needs to defend some pass-heavy teams that they'll have on their schedule this year. So with that, on to 14th, I think this is a team that has a lot of upside long-term. I don't think it's going to be there yet. It's going to be a young team that's figuring itself out. It's a good coach that's building something. But again, it's just going to take a little bit of time. Arizona State. They're not there yet, but they're heading somewhere. Same as like Arizona was a few years ago, right? Where they weren't there yet, and then they were getting there under Jed Fish, and then they got there, and then he left. So if Kenny Dillingham is sticking around, maybe he fulfills the prophecy of Arizona football. So year 2 there, struggled last year, 3-9. It's a pro-style offense with a hybrid 4-3, 4-2-5 defense. I do think they step up a smidge. I mean, 3-9 is tough. I think it's probably going to be around that, maybe one game above it, but towards the bottom of the conference. I just don't think they're there yet. I don't think they're ready to make that next step. So on the depth chart here, looking at the offense real quick, let's start with the O line. The O line will be a little bit below average. You bring in Josh Atkins from Hawaii. He's been a starter there. You have Ben Coleman at the left guard, Leaf Fautanu at center. Those are three guys with starter experience. The right side, from what I've seen, does not have a lot of experience. They're more so rotational guys. So 3 out of 5 is not bad. You'd want 4 out of 5 or 5 out of 5 to be really, really competitive. The receiver room is questionable because Jake Smith has the scores. Melquan Stovall has the yards. No one has both. If they can get a guy who's able to do both, then maybe we'll be all right. But as far as from what I've seen, it's like pieces of a good receiver room, and pieces of what it could be. So I'm a little bit worried about the receiver room for Arizona State this year. Sam Leavitt does not have a ton of experience coming in from Michigan State, but he'll have the opportunity now at Arizona State to step up and deliver. Cam Scatibo, he's the running back room is the room I believe in the most on this offense. I think it's going to be above average. It's going to be a problem. I think Arizona State ends up shifting more towards run first because that will be where the majority of their skill is on this team, especially if they can run left, knowing that's the stronger side of the offensive line. I think that's what ends up, making Arizona State successful on offense. On defense, I'm a little bit more hopeful. D-line is going to be average, below average, especially with that 1-2 punch of Anthony Cooper and Prince Dorba. Those two are guys I think you got to watch out for. Those are guys I think got a lot of upside and potential. It's not a D-line that's going to be a detriment. It's not a D-line that's going to be a problem for either side. It's not going to be a problem for Arizona State because it's weak. It's not going to be a problem for opposing teams that are going to get overpowered by it. It's perfectly fine for where it's at right now. Linebacker room is nice. They bring up a couple of good transfers. They bring in Keyshawn Elliott from New Mexico State. They bring in Cyrus Fayasu from San Diego State. And that immediately becomes the 1-2 punch that this defense needs. And I know there are two guys coming up from the Power 5 or from the Group of 5 level to the Power 4 level. And the way that I look at it as, the chemistry that they can bring and the experience that they can bring are very, very valuable. And they'll both be back next year knowing that they're both juniors. I think they have the opportunity to, do some damage for this Arizona State defense and make an impact pretty instantly. DB room is where I've got some concerns. They bring in LaTerrence Welch from LSU. They bring in Javon Robinson from Washington State and Cole Martin from Oregon. And that really only leaves Shamari Simmons as like your lockdown guy. You can make an argument for Xavier Alford, but the new guys they're bringing in are guys that didn't necessarily like break through on those other teams, especially if you look at where they were coming from. LSU had a terrible defense last year. So he's transferring out from for a fresh start. Cole Martin coming in from Oregon. And, if that's the case, like Oregon was a great team last year, it means he couldn't, break through that depth chart. So it's guys that are looking for fresh starts that haven't lived up to that potential yet. They have an opportunity to do it, but it's hard for us to evaluate them when they haven't done it yet. So Arizona State on offense will go with Sam Leavitt. Again, it comes in from Michigan State. Not a ton of playing time, not a ton of experience. Did have a 22-yard rush against Minnesota last year. That's promising as a dual threat guy, but really want to see him evolve as a passer. Really want to see him evolve as a playmaker. Young kid, redshirt freshman, a lot of eligibility left, and could be the guy for Arizona State in the future. But it's going to take that development and that patience if you're an Arizona State fan. On the defensive side of the ball, on the topic of transfers, LaTerrence Welch comes in from LSU, did pick up a pass defended against Ole Miss. That was a a high quality game back and forth last year. And, so if that's the case, LaTerrence Welsh has been used to high level offenses and high level environments. And to come to Arizona State, where, he may not face that week in and week out, I think he's going to have an opportunity to break through that depth chart and be a pretty dynamic player for Arizona State this year, especially on a secondary that does not have a ton of returning production and a ton of immediate impact players. I think Welsh can evolve, continue to develop as a player and be the guy that Arizona State needs back there. So moving on to 13th, another team that struggled with the adjustment to the Big 12 last year, but I think should be a little bit better this year. I think that's the easiest way to say it. It's a team that, historically did really well at the Group of Five level, but didn't make that immediate step to the what was then Power Five, now Power Four level. And I think they'll start to make that path known this year. That'll be Cincinnati. So Scott Satterfield, rough year last year, going 3-9, last place in the Big 12. I don't think that's going to be the case this year. I already have them at 13th. So even with the new teams coming in, they've already moved up. It's just going to take a bit of time before they get back to the middle of the pack and back to the top of the conference. So year 2, 3-9 last year, multiple offense, multiple defense, and I think a big chip on their shoulder after what happened with last year. So let's take a look at the depth chart here. On offense, good looking O-line, a lot of starters coming back. I think they have, if I'm not mistaken, all of their offensive line is coming back. That's going to be huge for this team. So I will give them credit. That offensive line could be the best in the conference when it's all said and done. Receiver room, not much different. This is a top 5 room in the conference. You bring in Tyron Smith from UTEP. You retain Joey Beljan, who's a huge red zone threat. 15 catches, 6 of them touchdowns. Right? I mean, that's a big game. That's a big year. Who else? You bring in from FAU, Tony Johnson. You have Xavier Henderson coming back. He's a 700-800 yard guy when it's all said and done, looking to get to the 1,000-yard mark this year. So a lot of potential, a lot of upside with that receiver room. I think it's a top 5 room. You bring in Brendan Sorsby from Indiana at quarterback. Okay, below average guy, but looking to make a difference in his new home. Kind of the same with Corey Kiner there at running back, a potentially below average running back. 1,000-yard guy just can't score, and I do take that into consideration. I do like guys who hit the end zone. So if he can get 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns this year, it's a big difference than 1,005 touchdowns. Again, that's what 6 times 5, 30 more points, 35 with extra points. That's at least 2 more wins when it's all said and done. So you can hit that extra step and hit the end zone and find the end zone. Cincinnati will be in a good spot. On the defensive side of the ball, I do like this D line. You bring in Darian Varner from Wisconsin. You bring in Micah Coleman from Eastern Michigan, and on top of that, you have Dante Corleone in the middle. I think it's a great 1-2-3 punch. I think the Cincinnati defensive line is going to get a lot of pressure this year, more than they have in the past. So really looking forward to seeing how that plays out. The linebacker room is questionable, I think is the nicest way to say that. They bring in Jared Bartlett from West Virginia. I think that's a pretty immediate instant pickup. You got Jack Dingle back there, Mekhi Miller. So you have pieces that, Mekhi Miller's a star, apologies. But Jack Dingle, is really that guy that you're looking for back there. That's your leader on the linebacker room. If I just look at it compared to the other linebacker rooms, it's a little bit less experience, it's a little bit less deep, so to speak. And then the DB room, I think, is kind of the same deal. It's below average. It can fight to be average if it wants. It's just going to be a matter of how that comes together. Bring in Derek Canteen from Virginia Tech. You bring in Joshua Minkins from Louisville. Those are guys who can make immediate impact. Mekhi Miller, as earlier, he'll be that star, that's an immediate impact player. I think Jordan Young has a lot of upside and potential at corner. So there are options there that can break out. There are options that can live up to that expectation and live up to what's in front of them. But on offense, my breakout player, I'll go with Brendan Sorsby coming in from Indiana. Had a nice game against Illinois last year, 289 yards passing and 3 touchdowns. That's the type of game you want to see. And I know Illinois is like an average Big Ten team, but Indiana's not. And he came in, from a program that was falling off the rails, doing his best, and comes in with a fresh start. So I look at Illinois as about, as an average Big Ten program or below average Big Ten program would be an average Big 12 program. So, Illinois is known for their defense as well, especially the pass defense. So if he's doing that against a quality opponent to throw against in Illinois, he's going to torch some of these defenses in the Big 12. So I'm looking forward to seeing how Brendan Sorsby comes together this year, how he evolves as a leader, evolves as a passer, and continues to develop in the way that Cincinnati needs him to over the next couple of years. On defense, I'll go with Jonathan Thompson. So I'll go with that linebacker room. Had a 9-tackle performance against Kansas, which that got my eyebrows popped. I'm like, oh, okay, that's a big day. Nothing a whole lot to report on outside of that. But I mean, if you have 9 tackles in one game, you can have 9 tackles the next, and the next, and the next, and the next. He can be that playmaker that Cincinnati needs him to be on defense. He can be that playmaker that's required to be successful if you are at the Power 4 level or in the Big 12. You need that solid linebacker core. I think Jonathan Thompson is that future piece for Cincinnati to help move this program along in the Big 12. So yeah, Brandon Sorsby at quarterback, Jonathan Thompson at linebacker. Those are your guys that you need if you think Cincinnati is going to step up and have a big year. I think Cincinnati's still developing and still a program in in discovery, so to speak. But it'll be better than last year. I think that's all you can ask for. So coming up on number 12 is another. It's not someone who's new. This is one of the ones who is a mainstay for, who is a mainstay in the Big 12, been there a while, but disappointing year last year. I still think is going to be another disappointing year, even if it is better, but that will be Baylor. Dave Aranda, year 5, hasn't really worked out recently. I do remember a time when Baylor was hitting on all cylinders, and one of the talks of the Big 12 there, those feel like centuries ago. It just has not come together for Baylor, and I don't think it's going to come together this year. I think it's going to be a little bit better for Dave, but I mean, if you're Baylor, you got to think about, is this the guy of our future? Is this the guy who's going to take us to the next step? And you got to have that realistic conversation of, are things getting better or are they staying the same? I don't root for guys to get fired. I don't root for, unless they're, I don't root for teams to lose unless I actively dislike them. But in this case, Baylor needs to have that conversation at the end of this year. But it could be a Neil Brown situation where you think he's a dead man walking and he turns around and saves himself. I don't know. I don't think that's going to happen, but I said the same thing about Neil Brown, and look how that ended up. So, depth chart for Baylor. Let's look at the O-line. Going to be solid. They bring in Kurt Daniker from Ohio. They got 2 starters coming back on the right-hand side, Campbell Barrington, Gavin Byers. So it's going to be a solid to above average O-line, which is really what you need. Receiver room's not much to write home about. You have Monterey Baldwin is the big one for me, but outside of that, I got concerns. So again, after that number 1 guy, who steps up as an option for Baylor? Quarterback is going to be great for them this year. I'm very high on DeQuan Finn coming down from Toledo to lead this Baylor team. Toledo last year, won their conference, was a borderline top 25 team when it was all said and done. And, DeQuan Finn was a very big reason behind that. And I anticipate him having a an additional impact at a new program this year as he tries out the Power Four life. And then on the running back room, I think Dominic Richardson is a fine running back for what this team needs. So if the if the receiver room can step up, this Baylor offense could be pretty good. The quarterback is there, the O line is there, the running back room is almost there, but the wide receiver room is the one that needs it the most. Defense is where I think Baylor loses all of their games. If you look at the D line, outside of Cooper Lands, who's your guy? I don't see him. So you got one piece down there. On the linebacker room, you got Matt Jones there. Garmin Randolph can apply some pressure, and that's really it. You got a couple of guys here and there. I think it's going to be a little bit more advanced than the D line is, and then on the the DB room, Devin Bobby is a good safety there. Devin Lemire is a good option, and then Caden Jenkins at corner. But outside of that, it's a lot of guys who are inexperienced or unproven. I think they're going to be below average at minimum to bottom 5 in every one of the defensive position groups. So fortunately, it doesn't matter, at least on paper, what the Baylor offense is going to do, because the Baylor defense needs a lot of help. But with that in mind, the game is not played on paper. And we do have to get out there on Saturdays or on weekdays, and you play the games that you've scheduled there. So on offense, breakout player, if you're looking at that receiver room, I'll go with Kelsey Johnson at tight end. Had a 2-catch performance against Texas, a 21-yard catch against Long Island. That's about it. Just kind of pieced it together here and there. Has had little moments, but we got to see those big moments come together this year. I think with the emphasis on getting to DeQuan Finn and stopping the run game, that Kelsey Johnson will emerge as a positive option for this team in the red zone. And, take it how you will. But I think Kelsey Johnson could be a big part of the offense moving forward, especially as a junior. I want to see him evolve more from like a special teams guy to a pure pass catcher moving forward. And I think this is the year to get that done. On defense, I'll stick with the line there. I'll go Trey Wilson. As a true freshman last year, had picked up a sack against Utah and a fumble recovered against Texas State. So been on the stat sheet. That was a good, it was a quality Utah team last year, a little bit below their average, but still a quality team. And Texas State is Texas State. I know it's a group of 5 school, but if you're making plays and creating turnovers and making making an impact for your team, you will get noticed and you will get that time that you're looking for. I think this is his year to make that time more consistently. So I'm going to say Trey Wilson on defense helps anchor a D-line that really needs a leader and needs a pure pass rusher that I don't think they have at this current time. And I think Trey Wilson will be that guy moving forward. So heading off to 11th, this is a team with a ton of hype around them. This is a team that, this is the most polarizing team in college football. Now, I think that gives it away. I think I just nailed it down for you all, but I think they don't do much better than how they were last year, and that's Colorado. I'm not saying Coach Prime, because that's not the name on his birth certificate, and it's not the name on his Wikipedia page. Coach Deion Sanders in year 2 over at Colorado. And I'm not for or against Colorado. I'm not for or against Deion over there. I'm just speaking facts and just the way that I see it. But they're coming in, struggled last year in the Pac-12, looked better than they did a year before. I'm credit where it's due. There's buzz around Colorado football for the first time in a decade. It just needs more time. And does Sanders have the patience to allow this to show up and evolve as a program? Easier said than done, but we'll see how it comes together this year. Let's look at the depth chart. Obviously going to be a lot of gold there. Colorado abuses the transfer portal like no one else. and for good reason. Offensive line is going to be average, which is a step up for what it was last year. Tyler Brown was a solid guard for them. And then on the right-hand side, they bring in Justin Mayers from UTEP. They bring in Khalil Benson from Indiana. Those are the types of starters that you need instantly. I think it's the best receiver room in the conference. So to give credit where it's due, LaJonte Wester comes in from FAU. That's a big pickup. Will Shepard comes in from Vanderbilt. That's a big pickup. And you combine that with Jimmy Horn and Travis Hunter. Shedur's got options. Speaking of Shedur, the best quarterback in the Big 12. So that back and forth is gigantic for Colorado. The skill positions, Dion thrives there. To give him credit where it's due, he's a great talent developer at quarterback and at receiver. We've seen that last year. We're going to keep seeing it this year. The running back room, I'm not super high on at this current time. I think it's it's an average one, especially compared to the rest of the offense. I think Dallin Hayden is okay. And he comes in from Ohio State. So, that's the way I look at it. If I look at the defense, D-line is going to be good, as is the linebacker room. The D-line, you have Shane Cokes there, who comes back. You bring in, Dayon Hayes from Pitt. You bring on a Chidozie Nwankwo from Houston. So you have your pieces in place on the D-line. I think it's going to be a top 5 in the conference. I think you got a great duo of linebackers with Levante Bentley and Trevor Woods. Fantastic 1-2 punch. So I am not worried about the front 7, or in this case, the front 6 and a 4-2-5. Not worried about them all. I think they're going to be great at generating pressure. The DB room, I think, is going to be a little bit average. You bring in DJ McKinney from OK State. You bring in Preston Hodge from, where's he from? Liberty. And then, you combine that with Cameron Silman-Craig, Shiloh Sanders, and Travis Hunter. And, I think there's pieces to look forward to, but I think they're just on the younger side and really haven't developed yet as a unit. So the offensive player for Colorado that breaks out, I'm going to go with Dallin Hayden. Again, comes in from Ohio State. I want to look at this game against Purdue he had last year. He had a 76-yard rushing game and a touchdown. I believe this is the touchdown run. So let's take a look at this real quick. Just hands off. Just finds his holes, brushes off. He punches it in from 3 out. But I mean, let's look at that again, because that is an aggressive run, right? He just puts his head down and barrels through. So let's go off, and then it takes one guy to get him down, but he's inside the 5. It's the aggressive, hard-nosed runner that Colorado needs, especially when there's so much emphasis on the receivers, especially when there's so much emphasis on getting pressure to the quarterback. If you can have an established run game, it just opens up your options for Colorado's offense. I think Dallin Hayden's going to be the guy to do that. Now, in defense, you may be surprised with this choice. Let's see if I can do it without. Yeah, you read that right, Travis Hunter. So I think Travis Hunter is more established as a receiver than he is as a cornerback. And I think when he gets to the NFL, he's not going to be playing both ways. I do think he ends up as a corner in the NFL, but he needs to do, I think he needs to do the work to earn that first-round grade this year. Right now, he's shown better results as a receiver. But I really am curious to see how this works as a as a DB this year. I look at his 2 interception performance against UCLA and his 6 tackle performance against Arizona. All big reasons to be high on Travis Hunter this year. I think if he didn't get injured towards the beginning of the season, he would have had a full season at cornerback, and we'd be seeing why that stock is so high, why he's the athlete, cover athlete for College Football 25. So let's take a look. This is one of the interceptions. This is one of the most athletic plays I've seen in a very long time. So he drops back, just lays out, takes it to the ground just instantly. And I think it's going to show the replay here. Yeah. So he just dives out, I mean, snipes it. Like you can't anticipate something like that. Did it touch the ground? Maybe, sort of. It still counted, you know. But that is just an athletic five-star caliber play. And if we see a lot of that over the course of this year, you will be hearing Travis Hunter's name called in the first round of the NFL draft next year. I promise you that. So I think it's going to be a big year for him on a Colorado team that still is not able to get over that threshold and into bowl eligibility, for example. So now we are at our top 10. This is a team that a lot of people are somewhat high on, at least from what I've seen. There's a lot of hype around this team. I don't think they're going to be like the top of the conference, but I think they might give someone a scare or two down the line. Uh, you know, Quality program with a quality head coach. Going Iowa State. Can't go wrong with Iowa State, right? They're a very lovable team if you're not one of their rivals. They're kind of like the little engine that could have college football. But Matt Campbell is back at it again. Um, Always in the coaching carousel for someone's job somewhere, but he is, locked in for Iowa State for the foreseeable future. Fourth place finish last year, 7-6, 6-3. Multiple style offense and multiple style defense. Definitely curious to see how it works out this year. I don't think they live up to the expectations that others have of them. That's kind of the Iowa State way of doing things, right? When there's a ton of hype around them, they dip down. When there's no hype around them, they exceed expectations. Very similar to like Oklahoma State, just kind of a lower caliber. But Iowa State, I think, was due for a solid year, right around the middle of the conference. So if we look at the depth chart real quick, offense is actually looking pretty nice. I'll give them credit. O-line has a ton of starts. They got 4 of their 5 starters coming back. And the only one who's not a full-time starter was Brendan Black, who's started his fair share of games. So you have, everyone on the screen there: James Neo, Jared Hufford, Jim Boniface, and Tyler Miller. Tons of experience coming back for this team. Same with the receiver room. Jaden Higgins is going to hit the 1,000-yard mark this year if he doesn't get hurt. Jalen Noel could hit the 10 touchdown mark this year if he doesn't get hurt. So you have a dynamic 1-2 punch and big punches there. I think it's top 3 in the conference, potentially number 1 if it all said and done. But this is a receiver room that is very, very talented. Rocco Becht is a top 5 quarterback in the conference. So the offense is going to have tons and tons and tons and tons of options. I think, the O-line is stacked. The receiver room is healthy and familiar. They have a great quarterback. The running back room is less deep with Abu Sama as a true freshman last year. But, outside of that, 3 out of 4 dynamic pieces being in the top 5 of the conference is huge. Defense is going to be a little bit of a drop off. The D-line is towards the middle. You do have Joey Peterson and Tyler Onyedim as your 1-2 punch on the ends there. I think they can do some damage. Linebacker room, a little bit questionable in my eyes. In a below average room, but fueled with guys like Caleb Bacon, Will McLaughlin. There are skill players there. It's just going to take a little bit of time for them to rise to the occasion. DB room is the highlight of the Iowa State defense this year. You have Bo Frailer, who is a top tier safety. Miles Purchase is great at the corner. You got who else? Malik Verndon, Jeremiah Cooper. There are guys there that are legitimate playmakers for Iowa State on the DB side of things. So I think it's going to be big on that side of the ball. I think the offense will be a little bit better, but the if the linebacker group can step up, then I think this Iowa State team is the one that might be in contention, as other people are saying. So with that offensive breakout player, I'll go Abu Sama the third. Look at this game against Kansas State. So 276 yards rushing and 3 touchdowns, 21-yard catch against OK State, so he can be a pass catcher as well. But good Lord, this game against Kansas State. I think this is the opening. Which one did I clip here? I think it's the opening drive. Like the first handoff from scrimmage, gone. In the snow, I'm thinking 75 yards. I imagine nobody returned it. Not in that kind of weather. So a 70-yard 5-yard run, from scrimmage. I don't let's see if he's untouched. Just a little bit, and then just stiff arms him and he's gone. Like that is a big boy play for a true freshman. So I give credit where credit's due. Obviously, is due for a big year this year, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how he plays against these other defenses full time. On defense, we'll go back to the linebacker room. Jack Sadowski, the fifth, six tackle performance against Kansas, but otherwise, played more as a rotational guy, as a true freshman, didn't redshirt. So, definitely got that talent that you're looking for there. But I think, Sadowski there is going to be, a pretty key factor for the linebacker room for Iowa State, especially if they want to rise to the occasion and compete in the Big 12. It's just a matter of youth and inexperience here. I'm sure he'll get more of it over the course of the year and step up to the occasion, get his playmaking opportunities, and get something done and be a special player for this Iowa State defense this year. So with that, we're heading into ninth place. And this is a team that defied expectations last year, rose to the occasion, and I think has a lot of hype around them this year. I think where they end up is probably somewhere closer to the middle. So with that in mind, I'm going to go with West Virginia. Neil Brown saved his job last year with a great 9-win campaign for West Virginia. Fourth in the Big 12, looking to make another splash this year. Spread offense, multiple defense, but I'm not as high on them as some of our experts in the industry are, so to think. I think they do decline a little bit this year, and you'll see why as I pull things up. But I just don't think it goes the way West Virginia is looking for, especially after a nice 9-4 season. That's probably again they're closer to the middle, which is not great, but compared to where things were recently in West Virginia history, it's not a bad place to be. So with West Virginia's depth chart real quick, if we look at the offense, that's where I think West Virginia has quite a few problems. O-line is good. It's a good look. It's a top 5 O-line. You four starters coming back from left to right: Wyatt Milam, Thomas Remick, Brandon Yates, Jaquay Hubert. 1, 2, 3, 4 have solid starts under their belt. Receiver room does not. You do have a legitimate red zone threat in Cole Taylor at tight end, but outside of that, those receivers are young. You bring in Jaden Bray from OK State, but outside of that, it's a lot of young guys that need to earn their stripes. Garrett Green is a solid quarterback. I'd love to see him see the end zone a little bit more. Maybe elevate these receivers a little bit, but I don't know where he's getting the Heisman hype from. I've seen some of those lines. I'm like, I don't know about that. If you can elevate the team, then that's worth it. But I haven't seen elite quarterback play from him yet. Could happen. I just haven't seen it yet. And then the running back room is going to be below average. Jaheim White leading the way as a true freshman, had a pretty solid freshman campaign. But again, when you're compared to the rest of the conference, it's hard to stack up when you've only had 1 year under your belt. On the defensive side of the ball, D-line is solid. I'll give it where it's due. Sean Martin is no joke on the end there. Someone that West Virginia is going to lean on pretty heavily as a playmaker. That spiritual and literal leader for West Virginia on the D line there. Really looking forward to seeing what he does and how he evolves on the line this year. Linebacker room has some holes and some question marks from what I see. I do like Ben Cutter. Tyron Bradley has his moments as well, but I'm looking for a little bit more top-heavy performances that I haven't seen so far. But the DB room is nice. The DB room is going to have its options. You bring in Garnett Hollis Jr. from Northwestern. You bring in Jaheim Joseph from Northwestern, and then you bring in Dantes Fagan from Charlotte. It might be Fagan. For reasons. But you combine those with Anthony Wilson and who's the other one here? Aubrey Burks, and you have a recipe for a DB room that's going to be top 5 in the conference when it's all said and done. Going to be hard for opposing offenses to get anything valuable going on through the air, especially against this team. So really looking forward to seeing that. It's kind of a hodgepodge team where it's strong some cases, weak in others. That's why I think middle of the conference is an appropriate place for them to be. On the offensive side of the ball, your breakout player is going to be Rodney Gallagher, sophomore wide receiver, had a 3-catch performance against Cincinnati. Nice little 15-yard rush against TCU. So they're going to use him as like a Deebo Samuel type. I think we have that run here. That's what this is. So we'll reverse. Just pulls up, does what you need to do. So a shifty guy, guy who can get downfield regardless of, he's catching passes or running trick routes like that. Really interested to see how they use him as kind of like that gadget receiver for West Virginia. It could be exciting to watch, and someone you got to keep an eye on for if you're a West Virginia fan. I think he has a big year ahead of him coming up. On defense, as we get out of that, we go with Trey Latham at the linebacker role. So did have a forced fumble and a fumble recovered against Texas Tech. Pass defended against Pitt, so a conference game and then a rivalry game. Those are the type of performances you want to see if you are West Virginia, especially from a young kid. He was a redshirt freshman last year, redshirt sophomore coming up. So got to give him credit where credit is due. He's earned his starting spot in a linebacker room that is really young and is looking for a voice and looking for a leader. I think Latham is that guy for West Virginia this year, is that guy who's ready to step up, make a change, and make a difference. For a linebacker room that is going to be severely overlooked on a West Virginia team that is either going to be overrated or underrated. Like there's no middle ground. Well, I guess what? Being perfectly rated. I don't know. I got them right in the middle of the conference. I got some people who think they're going to be towards the top. I don't see that with the holes that I've outlined previously. Moving on to the top half of the conference, another team with a ton of hype around them. Now, if they didn't get devoured in the coaching in the coaching changes in the transfer portal, I'd probably be higher on them too. But in the current stage of college football that we're in, nobody is able to hold on to nice things for very, very long. And this team is no different. It'll be Arizona. The Brent Brennan era has started. He's coming in from San Jose State as their head coach. Great year for Arizona last year. 10-win team, third in the Pac-12. Was really looking forward to seeing what they were going to be this year. But with the coaching changes and the transfer portal coming in, I think Arizona is still a quality program, but it's not the type of quality that you may be expecting after the year that they just had. I do think they fall off quite a bit. And a lot of that promise and development that was had over the course of last year is kind of lost this year. Let's look at the depth chart real quick. So O-line is where I've got some concern. They got 2 starters coming back with Josh Baker and Jonah Savainea. That's my guess there. So you got 2 out of 5. Not a ton of experience on the O-line. Going to be tough to make anything really happen for Arizona. Like I'm just worried about the amount of time that they have for plays to develop and the pressures that's going to be immediately put upon them. It's a young O-line. It's an inexperienced O-line. And, we just haven't seen what that looks like yet. Receiver room is average. You bring in Raymelo, where's he from? Old Dominion. Raymelo Murphy from Old Dominion. You bring in Sam Olson at tight end from San Jose State. But really the one you got to look at is Tataroa, Tataroa McMillan there. 1,400-yard guy, 10 touchdowns in the past. Like, that's going to be your guy for Arizona. That's the guy that you're interested in, especially with Noah. Noah Fafita is a top 5 quarterback in the conference. So as long as they got that, they're in a good spot. So the quarterback room is locked down, no problem. And then they bring up a great transfer at running back to hold down their room. They bring in Ja'Cory Merritt from New Mexico State. And I think he comes in as a top 3 running back in the conference already. With what he's put up, if he can replicate it, it's not even question he's going to be top 3. I'm looking forward to seeing what that new combination looks like. It's a lot of moving pieces right now. It's a lot of uncertainty in some spots more than others. Just really interested to see how that looks for Brent Brennan in year 1 on offense. Defense should look a lot better, though. Defense, I got no concerns on from anywhere. I'm just really worried about that O-line for Arizona this year. The D-line for Arizona is going to be 100% new. You bring in Stanley Ta'ufu'uo from USC. You bring in Chubba Mai from UC Davis. You bring in Kevon Darton from Syracuse, and you bring in Trey Smith from San Jose State. I think when it's all said and done, and when they click and they get on all cylinders, that is the best D-line in the Big 12. It's just going to take a little bit of time, but I think when it's all said and done, it is the best D-line in the Big 12. I think the linebacker room is going to be top 5, and that is Jacob Manu and Justin Flo. I mean, mainly Jacob Manu. This guy is a monster. Just watch one of his games. Watch their week 1 game. I think it's New Mexico. New Mexico. I think it's New Mexico or Hawaii or Wyoming. Arizona State has the other. But just watch the damage that he does against his group of 5 opponent, and the impact that he has for this Arizona team early on in the year. And then at the DB room, it's going to be above average, probably just outside of the top 5. You bring in Jono Price from JUCO, and he is surrounded by some playmakers. Dalton Johnson, Gunnar Maldonado, Traden Stukes. Like, you have these pieces here that are electric as far as I'm concerned. So there's some nice pieces there if you are Arizona at every part of the defense. So with that in mind, if you look at the breakout player on offense, I'll go with Leif Magnuson. Been a rotational guy at the O-line for a while, and now finally getting his time to shine as a starter. Just hasn't happened yet, but big opportunity and big chance for him this year. It's going to be an O-line that is going to need someone to step up, that is going to need some help, especially on the middle part of the field, because it's either him or Wendell Moe, and they're both rotational guys primarily. But Leif Magnuson has the opportunity to make a big splash this year for an O-line that is going to need that help, for an O-line that is going to be protecting some very talented skill position players. And you win in the trenches and you lose in the trenches. And Magnuson here has the opportunity to help Arizona win a lot of games this year when it's all said and done. And I think he's got the ability to do it. On the defensive side of the ball, I'll go with your JUCO transfer there. I'll go with Jono Price. Comes in from College of San Mateo, which is, again, a junior college program. If you can go from JUCO to starting at a Power 4 program, you deserve your spot there. You deserve your spot on the roster, and you deserve the shout out for working as hard as you did to get there. I think he's going to be the guy. I think, he's got a lot of good DBs around him, and that have shown their experience so far. Again, Dalton Johnson, Gunnar Maldonado, Takario Davis at his other corner. Like, there's a lot of upside for this team and on this defense. This is where I think Arizona wins their games. It's going to be the defense comes together, the transfer portal guys click, and they make magic out of a season that should have had magic, but is being taken away from them by the modern era of college football. So I'm gonna give Jono Price that shout out and that ability to step up for Arizona and be the potential lockdown corner that they need for the foreseeable future. Looking at number 7 now. So definitely in the top half. This is a team that's also fairly new to the conference, not brand new, but if we've covered Houston and we've covered BYU and we've covered Cincinnati, that leaves one more. And I expect another average season in the conference from a team that was in the group of 5 and is still adjusting to the fast-paced play of Power 4 living. That's going to be UCF. So 9th place in the Big 12 last year, losing season. I don't think it goes that far wrong again this year. I do think they get a little bit more time under their feet, and it does work out a little bit more. But UCF, I don't think is going to be a conference championship contender. I still think they're a little bit of ways away from that happening. But I mean, it's a program to watch. It's a program to keep an eye on if you're in the conference or if you're in the region. I don't think UCF is backing down anytime soon. So I just think they're not there yet, especially with the 6 teams we have ahead of them. So with a spread option offense and a 4-2-5 defense, we'll take a look at UCF depth chart. O-line is solid. You bring in Wes Dorsey from Western Kentucky. I think that's a pretty good addition. Marcellus Marshall at the guard there is a starter and a contributing piece for UCF, especially on that line. Amari Kite on the left tackle has his fair share of starts and his fair share of opportunities. So it's an offensive line that should be in the upper half of the conference, which is a great building block to think about here. The receiver room is not phenomenal. You do have Kobe Hudson, who's your number 1 guy. You bring in Javarius Johnson from Auburn, but outside of that, I don't. I see 2 threats on the receiver room. That's it. I don't see a whole lot else. Now you do bring in KJ Jefferson from Arkansas, and I think he's a top 5 quarterback in this conference immediately. So maybe he's the one elevating these receivers, and maybe he's the one making them better. I think he's going to fit into the Gus Malzahn offense perfectly. I think it's a great fit, but will the skill pieces around him or will the O-line around him be able to allow him to be the playmaker that he is? And then you do have RJ Harvey, who another top 5 player or room in their conference there. The running back room, I think, is the best room in the for UCF on this offense. It's definitely top 5, probably closer to top 3 in the Big 12. And RJ Harvey is a big reason for that. 16 touchdown guy, 1,400 yards, a true workhorse for UCF and someone I don't think is going to slow down this upcoming year. If we look at the defense, this is where I actually think UCF wins a lot of their games. This defense looks pretty nice, especially for the Big 12. I think every position group is top 5. I think every position group is potentially top 3. If we look at the D line, you have Lee Hunter and Ricky Barber as your 1-2 punch in the middle. Those are 2 of the best D linemen in the conference right there. So take the other guys out of the equation for a second. Those 2 are phenomenal on their own. If we look at the linebacker room, Ethan Barr and Josiah Pierre are phenomenal linebackers in their own right. And to clarify, Ethan Barr comes in from Vanderbilt. Josiah Pierre comes in from Texas Tech. And on that D-line, I forgot to mention that you do have Nigelic Kelly, who comes in from Miami. But yes, the linebacker room is going to be fantastic in its own right and through its own performances. Same with the DB room. You bring in Deshaun Pace from Cincinnati. I think that's a huge pickup for UCF here. You have Sheldon Arnold coming in from East Tennessee State. I think that's a huge pickup. You bring in Traquan Fegans from USC, just a guy who's never lived up to that expectation, is looking to live up to it at UCF. And you combine that with Brandon Adams, you combine that with Damari Henderson, and you have a DB room that is going to be tough to beat for anyone. I'm really looking forward to seeing UCF's defense play. Offense has pieces that I think are going to be curious to see, but the defense should be pretty locked down in year 2 of Big 12 play for UCF. So on offense, our breakout player, we'll go with Randy Pittman there, sophomore tight end. Limited playing time last year as a true freshman, had a 2-catch, 29-yard performance with a touchdown against Kansas. A nice 39-yard catch against Oklahoma, so that big playmaker. I think UCF is looking for anyone to step up at the receiver room right now, even a tight end. They're looking for a red zone threat. They're looking for someone who's going to make a move and make an impact. And Pittman could be that guy and should be that guy when it's all said and done. It's a long road ahead. It could be any of those receivers outside of Kobe Hudson, but I got the most upside and the most faith of Pittman, knowing that he's got the most amount of eligibility left and the most amount to prove long term. On the defensive side of the ball, we'll go with Josiah Pierre coming in from Texas Tech. Picked up half a sack against Baylor last year. That's kind of his big moment of fame. Definitely want to see more of that over the course of his time with UCF. We want to see him as a pass rusher, as someone who goes back into coverage, like whatever he can do. And he sounds like he's had those moments and opportunities and pieces, but just didn't necessarily come out at Texas Tech last year. Definitely interested to see how that all comes together, with a fresh start on a new team and a new defense and making the most of the transfer portal. So now we are at our top 6. It's a team that fell off quite a bit last year after their previous year's, meteoric rise to the top. I think this year they end up, kind of somewhere in the middle. They're not going to be in that elite team category, but good enough to, make a few teams miss on them and, get an upset here or there that, defines their season in a good way. Going TCU. So TCU, year 3 under Sonny Dykes, they went to national championship year 1, losing record year 2. What happens in year 3? Probably something in the middle, probably like a winning record, but not a conference championship appearance. Is that a fair guess for TCU fans? Just looking for the happy medium and then building up towards something spectacular. I think that's the future that they want and that they might end up getting when it's all said and done. Yeah, 5-7 last year. Sonny Dykes is rolling with the air raid offense and 3-3-5 defense. Let's see the depth chart here. Offense, I'm going to have some concerns. The O-line has a couple of returning starters, but they're not from TCU. I guess fair enough, is starters from elsewhere that are coming in to start. You bring in Cade Bennett from San Diego State. You bring in Carson Bruno from Louisiana Tech. And then you bring in some utility guys like, Bless Harris from FSU, like James Brockmeyer from Alabama. Mike Nichols there, who's been a rotational guy for you in the past, but not the strongest full-time reputation of an O-line. I'd say it's a below average one until we see otherwise. The receiver room is going to be a little bit better, but probably closer to the average. You bring in Eric McAllister from Boise State. You bring in Drake Dabney from Baylor. You got some players. You got some threats there. Even the other guys, Savion Williams and J.P. Richardson, you got some options. Definitely not concerned about the passing game and having that open up for TCU this year. You have Josh Hoover at quarterback, who has, his set of experiences and his set of starts under his belt. I think he's a little bit below average until we see otherwise. And then the running back room is led by a true sophomore in Cam Cook. Not a ton of experience on that front. So curious to see how that impacts the run game this upcoming season. On the defensive side of the ball, the D-line is, I think every position group in this on this defense is average to below average. I think TCU's defense is going to be what wins them games. The D line's the weakest part of the room because outside of Devion Deal, I don't think you have. Well, he's a linebacker. Yeah, when I actually open up the map a little bit. So then what? Caleb Fox is your guy up front. I'm just, I'm a little bit concerned with that. I'm a little bit concerned about the lack of experienced full-time playmakers for TCU this year. But again, the linebacker room is looking nice. I think it's going to be an above-average one for sure. I think Caleb Elarms Orr and Namdi Ambiazor. I think we got through that. So yeah, it's a 3-3-5, and you got two of those guys are legit top tier athletes in the conference, and then Devion Deal is a strong addition to the linebacker room as well. And remember, he's coming in from Tulane, and you got Caleb Ellams Orr, who comes in from Cal. I think is ready to make an immediate impact. The DB room has Jatravis Broughton comes in from Utah. Richard Toney Jr. comes in from Nevada, and you pair him with Bud Clark at safety, Abe Camara at nickelback. Like it's a solid DB room as well. I think the defense is going to be what wins TCU games this year. The offense unfortunately, I think is going to be what loses them games this year. So with that, our breakout player on offense, we'll go Cam Cook, sophomore running back, 4-star recruit in the class of 2023, picked up a 16-yard run against BYU. So again, not a ton of playing time, not a ton of experience under his belt, but looking to explode onto the scene and be the guy for TCU moving forward. I think he can. If he can live up to that 4-star expectation and experience, he'll be good to go. I don't see any problems with TCU if that ends up being the case. And if he does deliver and be that guy, then TCU is going to be in the thick of things and be in games that they probably have no reason winning. So it's going to be on Cam Cook's shoulders to be the guy to step up as a running back there. On defense, we'll go with Tymon Mitchell. So again, senior looking to make a splash on the D line there. Picked up a pass defended against Oklahoma last year, 3-tackle game against Baylor last year. So again, has had his stat sheet moments, has had his big time moments for TCU, and looking to have more of that again this year. The D line is going to need someone to step up, and Mitchell is one of the seniors on this team. So if I'm looking to a leader to step up, I don't care if they've been a 4-year starter or if they've been a 4-year bench warmer. Mitchell needs to be that guy on the D line to create that pressure and make an impact for TCU to get the pressure that they need to stall opposing offenses and get their offense back out there to score. So I think Mitchell is going to be the guy to do it. He's going to make the most of his last year there and make a big impact for TCU over the course of this 12-game season and beyond. So next up, let's see what we got left. I believe this is going to be the last of our new teams coming in. So one of our Pac-12 buddies, the last of a dying breed, and here they are in the Big 12. The scraps that didn't go to the ACC or the Big 10, and with our last former Pac-12 team in 5th place, we got Utah. So a little bit of a disappointment year for Utah last year. With Cam Rising being out for the entire year, it felt like they never hit their stride, but Kyle Whittingham's been there forever. I thought about this the other day. The last coach for Utah before Kyle Whittingham was Urban Meyer. Like, let that sit for a little bit. He went to Florida, won 2 national championships. He went to Ohio State, won a championship. He went to the broadcast booth over at Fox. He went to Jacksonville and got fired after 13 games. And Kyle Whittingham's been there the whole time at Utah. And that's the type of stability and that's the type of growth that you need if you are a program like Utah. Just someone who's going to be there for you and have your back every step of the way. Kyle Whittingham has done that, fiercely loyal for Utah for quite some time. So with that, let's look at his depth chart. His spread offense and 4-2-5 defense. On offense, O-line, I think is going to be a problem, but you have 2 quality starters coming back with Michael Fisi and Spencer Fano on the right-hand side. So that's, you know, those two are fine. The rest, I'm just a little bit more concerned about since they're predominantly rotational players and, not a guys with a ton of experience. If we look at the tight end room, you still have Brent, I think it's Keithy is how you pronounce that. And that's a legit top tier tight end. Combine that with Dorian Singer, who's coming in from USC. You're going to do some damage with the receiver room this year. I got it as a top 5 room, and I got Cam Rising as a top 3 quarterback. If he comes back to form and he comes back to the Cam Rising that was killing everyone, Utah's going to be back on the mountaintop. Just going to be in a new conference. Cam Rising is legit. If he can go back to pre-ACL Cam Rising, then it's, again, it's going to be a bloodbath for a lot of teams going up against Utah. And then, the running back room, I think has some question marks with Micah Bernard leading the way. But with the receiver room as good as it is, with the quarterback room as good as it is, I'm sure the running back room will open up over the course of the season as we see Bernard get more snaps. The defense is actually where I have some problems, where I have some concerns. D-line is going to be fine. I got Van Fillinger and then Connor O'Toole on the left and right end. Those guys are legit. Those guys are tough. And, they're going to be creating that pressure for Utah the way that, Utah needs, with their front four. Linebacker room, I've got some concerns. They do have Karane Reed, and Lander Barton, who I'm high on, those two. But I would like to see a little bit more depth. I would like to see a little bit more experience from other parts of that room. And I'm interested to see how that comes together over the course of the season. I do have it as a below average room in the conference. I have the DB room as one of the worst in the conference. From a pure experience perspective, from a pure, what's coming back, they do bring in Keenan Johnson from Georgia Tech. And really outside of him, Zemiah Fawn at corner is really good. Tao Johnson at safety, he has his moments. But, when you're at 5 and you see 2 game players or two legit stars back there in a 5-person room, it's going to get thin quick. So I just want to see the rest of the room step up and make an impact for Utah this year. Speaking of impact players, let's go on offense. We'll go with Caleb Lomu on the offensive line, 4-star recruit in the class of 2023. Did redshirt last year, played sparingly as a rotational guy, probably special teams. Going to be asked to be that blindside tackle for Utah this year. Big expectations, big set of circumstances around him. I think he's going to be able to do it. I think he can set the bar for himself and for the rest of his team. Put him on his back and make the impact that he can to make Utah a contender for the Big 12 and for the playoffs and beyond. On the defensive side of the ball, I'll go Smith Snowden at nickelback here. Also a 4-star recruit in the class of 2023. So that class seems to be coming to the forefront of Utah's team right now, which could be good long term. Had a 3-tackle performance against Arizona State, and didn't redshirt last year, so made it out on the field enough to make that impact and be the type of winner and be the type of champion that Utah needs in their secondary. Now he's going to be there full time. Now he's going to be that that full time nickelback there, and I'm really interested to see the impact that he makes as he continues to evolve as a DB, as a defender, and as a college football player. He's going to get better year after year after year, and knowing that he's a true sophomore makes it very enticing for not just this year but his future at Utah. So Snowden Smith at the nickelback, and then Caleb Lomu at the left tackle. So now we are down to our final 4. And this is a team that I think had a lot of upside last year and fell short. I'm going to go back to having a lot of upside for them. So with that, in 4th place, I'll go with Texas Tech. I'm sold on Joey Maguire. I know last year didn't come together. I know they struggled. I think this is the year they bounce back. I think that 7-6 was not indicative of who they are as a team. I think this is a Texas Tech team that can win double-digit games. I think they can potentially make the playoff. When it's all said and done, it's a deep, deep team. So with that, we'll see what they're about, and the kind of impact that they can have on the Big 12 and beyond. When we look at the offense, I think the O line room is quality. It's a solid room. You bring in Sterling Porcher from Middle Tennessee. You bring in Vinny Sciuri from Toledo. You bring back Caleb Rogers. So you have three starter materials. Starter caliber. Offensive lineman day one with a couple of rotational guys that'll get those starts in quick. That's big. That is a big move for Texas Tech to have those options immediately. I like the running back room just to skip around a little bit. I do like Taj Brooks. I think he's going to be the focal point of the Texas Tech offense this year. The receiver room is okay. I mean the O line is an average room. The running back room is top 5. The receiver room, I think, is going to be closer to average. You bring in Josh Kelly from Washington State. I think that's a big get. You have a nice tight end with Mason Tharp. He's a red zone threat. Those are the two I got to look at. I want to see more from the other parts of this, this receiver room, but at least that top 2 is going to go a long way. And then you have Baron Morton, who had his moments and had his opportunities last year. Want to see more of him this year as a redshirt junior, how he comes into his own, and how he develops as a passer, as a leader, and as a quarterback. On the defensive side of the ball, I do think they're going to be a little bit worse off defensively than they are on offense. I think every room is either average to below average so far, at least in terms of returning production. D-line being one of them. Quincy Ledet is your only guy in that big 3. Other than that, it's kind of some younger guys that haven't established themselves just quite yet. The linebacker room has a few quality pieces. It's the best room on this defense with Ben Roberts in particular, but you add him with Jacob Rodriguez. He's a threat, especially if you are backing coverage like he ends up getting into. So you got at least 2 solid linebackers back there. And then the DB room is where I've got a little bit of some issues because, again, outside of CJ Baskerville and Braylon Lux, AJ McCarty, but again, 3 out of 5 is not where you want to be as a DB room. You want all of them up to par and in a good spot for you and your team. So just some concerns there that I haven't seen addressed yet that I'm sure will be addressed over the course of the upcoming season. So on offense, breakout player, we're going to go with quarterback. We're going to go with Baron Morton. So a 256-yard, 3-touchdown passing performance against Cal, 49-yard pass against UCF. So he's got the long ball. He's got the he's got the yards. He's got the accuracy. Let's see what this looks like. I think this is against Cal. This is their bowl game. So just back. I mean, yeah, it's a tough throw. It's a 50-50 ball, and he hits it. Yeah, this is their bowl game. Hits it exactly where you needed to put it. Let's see if we can roll that back a little bit because it was a little – I should have snipped it about a second earlier. So he's back. He's facing pressure, doesn't let it rattle him, hits the corner exactly, like the corner of the end zone exactly. Trust in his receiver. That's what you want to see from a young quarterback, especially a guy in a bowl game that is getting that chance to expose himself and be more out there. That's a big opportunity for Baron Morton, and he definitely took the most of it. I'm definitely interested to see what he does over the course of the upcoming year as he evolves into the quarterback that Texas Tech needs him to be for this year and beyond. And then on defense, we'll go with Marion Horn, one of their cornerbacks there. A 3-tackle performance against Texas. I think that was the Texas game they got blown out of. And then a 4-star recruit in the class of 2024. So just got to live up to that expectation. So really interested to see how that happens. It's a DB room that doesn't have a ton of experience. There's a lot of younger guys there. And, I think a 4-star coming to Lubbock is going to be the most likely to step up and deliver for a Texas Tech defense that needs someone to step up and deliver. So want to see how he does as a redshirt sophomore. Want to see how he does as he, continues to evolve into the defender that you're looking for. But, I'm very curious to see how that happens. But I think if the DB room is ready to step up and ready to make an impact, Marion Horn is going to be the guy who makes that happen for Texas Tech as they defy their odds and defy their expectations this year. And I think they have a bang up year like they should have last year. So that takes us to our top 3. So we got the 2 schools in Kansas, and we got the last Big 12 school in Oklahoma. So with that, I will give you our 3rd place squad because there's no divisions. That'll tell you exactly who the matchup is going to be. So in 3rd place, it's a team that you don't think of as a football powerhouse, but has evolved into something what I see is really special in the last couple of years. And I think they take their special talents one step further this year by contending for the Big 12 and a playoff spot. That's right, I'm going Kansas. So that means Kansas State, Oklahoma State in the conference championship, but we're going to talk about Kansas first. So the work that Lance Leopold has done at Kansas is nothing short of a modern-day miracle. He has turned the laughingstock of the Power 5 or the Power 4 into a legitimate football program. Year 4, they did all right last year. They did all right the year before. I think they're going to make a big splash this upcoming year. I think a lot of people are potentially overlooking them because it's Kansas and not Kansas State or Oklahoma State. I think they're going to catch some people slipping, and they're going to make a couple moves that a lot of people aren't going to see coming. So with that, Kansas on their depth chart, actually, multiple offense, 4-3 defense. Let's cover that first. So O-line is the only thing I'm worried about. They do have Michael Ford Jr. coming back, and they do have Bryce Calbledew. So you got 2 starters coming back out of 5. You will have to see 3, 4, or 5, but the rest are rotational guys with some starts under their belts. That's big. They bring in Shane Bumgardner from Tiffin. Definitely curious to see what he does with the jump from FCS to FBS this year. The receiver room is nice. You got Lawrence Arnold. What an appropriate name for someone who goes to school in Lawrence, Kansas, right? You got Luke Grimm coming back. Quentin Skinner has his moments. Jared Casey is a great tight end. So I'm not worried about the receiver room at all. It's a top 5 room as far as I'm concerned. Running back room, not much different. Also top 5 with Devin Neal leading the way. This is a guy who should be getting his name called, next year's draft. He's got all the tools and all the potential to make that happen. And then at the quarterback room, Jalen Daniels, I think, has never lived up to his expectations yet. I think he's an average QB from what we've seen so far, but has a lot of upside and a lot of potential. So I'm going to peg him as an average one for now until that opportunity to jump is realized. And then on the defensive side of the ball, this is where I think Kansas has a little bit of a drop-off. They bring in Javier Darrett from North Dakota State. And you combine him with Jareem Robinson, and you have a 1-2 punch on the line. It's still going to be below average. It's not as top heavy as you'd want it to be. It's not as deep as you want it to be. Similar to the linebacker room, where outside of Taiwan Berryhill, who's your guy? Because they got one down. You got to get a few more though. The DB room is good, though. The DB room is top five. Marvin Grant is no joke at safety. OJ Burrows, it's the other safety is fantastic. Mello Dotson and Kobe Bryant at the corners with that Mamba mentality. I think they'll Kansas is going to lock people down, especially if they got a less than average QB. Kansas is going to be a no-fly zone for a little bit here. So, take what you can get, but I think the Kansas DB room is going to be the highlight of this defense over the course of this year. With that, if we look at the breakout player on offense, I'll take the transfer lineman. Shane Bumgardner comes in from Tiffin. Hasn't started at the FBS level. I'm sure. At least a rotational player in the FCS level. Very interested to see how that comes out and how that transfers at Kansas this year. They're going to need some help on the O-line, protecting their quarterback, protecting their running back, making space for routes to develop, everything along those lines. And if Bumgardner is the guy who can step up and start for this team immediately, Kansas is going to be in a great spot over the course of the year. I think he can do it. I think he can be that guy to use the most of his eligibility and make the most of his experience at Kansas this year. On defense, I'll go with Jason Gilliam, redshirt junior linebacker. If we look at last year, picked up a sack against UCF, a pass defended against UNLV. And I know it's UNLV, but you can get it. You got to earn your stripes somewhere. Sack against UCF is nice. That's a conference flow. It's something they're going to probably play this year. And to get to them early and to get that type of pressure means you're on people's radar early on. If you can get a sack against UCF, you can get a sack against Cincinnati. You can get a sack against Arizona State. You can get a sack against Baylor. You can do all that. If you can do it against one, you can do it against all. So I'm really curious to see how that works for Jason Gilliam this year. Does he step up to those expectations? Does he deliver, the winning tradition that Kansas has been looking for so long, and does he make the defense a big part of it? I think he can do it, and I think he can make the splash that Kansas is looking for this year. All right, so that takes us to our top two. I will go with OK State first. Just order of preference and potential record. It doesn't matter when it comes to actually getting to the conference championship game. I will, just because someone finishes in first does not mean doesn't mean I'm picking them to win the conference championship game. We've seen that in one of the two videos I've already put out for this year, where the second place team won it all. So if you're a Pokes fan, there's still hope. But Oklahoma State, year 20, Mike Gundy, he is a man. He is more than 40 years old. 10-4 last year, everyone wrote him off, and they shocked the world. They're going to be running that air raid offense again, in a 3-3-5 defense. But, again, pressure's on, eyes are on Oklahoma State again. Very interesting to see how that comes together with the two, quote unquote, biggest teams in the conference now gone in Oklahoma and Texas. Who's going to be the one to, take the mantle from them? Is it going to be them? Is it going to be K-State? Is it going to be T-Tech? Is it going to be UCF? Who's going to be long-term? Could be OK State, but let's see what they're going to do this year. Let's see that depth chart there. Offense is nice. Offense is real. The O-line is stacked. They bring back 5 starters on the O-line. That's basically unheard of. It's going to be a tough year to get to the QB. And they got receivers coming back too. They got, just going down the list, Rashad Owens, DeJon Stribling, Brennan Presley, even Tyler Foster at the tight end. I got no problem with the receiver room. I think it's easily the top 5 in the conference. And that, Tyler Foster comes in from Ohio and is an immediate impact tight end for Oklahoma State. Alan Bowman's okay. He's a serviceable quarterback for a team that has never necessarily had a high-profile star quarterback. He's always going to be good enough for OK State, and he'll be an average quarterback for that team this year. And then you top it off with the best running back in college football, Ollie Gordon. Really excited to see what his Heisman campaign looks like, how he capitalizes on last year's huge year, and can he double down on it this year? Only time will tell, but I am not worried about the run game at OK State. On the defensive side of the ball, I am worried about the D-line, but the other two parts of this room are nice. The other two parts of this defense are top tier. I don't see a star on the D-line at this current time. They do have Obi Eziegbo, who comes in from Gannon, which is FCS, but everyone else is kind of a rotational player historically. In the DB or in the linebacker room, again, I think this is the best in the conference with Nick Martin, with Justin Wright, with Colin Oliver. I mean, it's just 1, 2, 3 in a row. And that's going to be tough. It's going to be a long day at the office if you're on an opposing offense there. And if you look at the DB room, you have Kendall Daniels. You have Trey Rucker. Those are two of the top safeties in the conference. And you combine that with someone like Cam Smith and Corey Black. Like you have artists back there who are, covering these fields and in a level of gameplay that the rest of the conference just does not have. So it's the best linebacker room in the conference, the best DB room in the conference, but it might be the worst D-line room in the conference. So how do you figure that out? Something's got to give. So breakout player on offense, I'll go Alan Bowman. So if we look at his Big 12 championship game performance, 250 yards passing and 3 TDs, had a nice 67-yard pass against Cincinnati. But let's take a look at that conference championship game. So I think he just kind of flung it in there. I should have started it about 5 seconds earlier. We'll run it back. It's already kind of out of hand at this point, if I recall. It's okay. We can. So gets back, doesn't have time. Doesn't let the pocket collapse. Gets it to his guy. Let's do that one more time. Throws it off his back foot, but into the right spot. It's 28-7 now. It's going to be 28-13. Is that what it is? Come on. Close enough. But yeah, those type. That's an athletic pass. I know it's under duress. It's against a tough environment or a tough team in a conference championship environment. So those types of throws go a long way over the course of a regular season. If he can continue to make them and continue to put himself in a position to, execute for his team, Oklahoma State is going to have no problem this upcoming year. And I think Alan Bowman is the guy to get that to happen for OK State. And on defense, we're going to go with the transfer I talked about earlier, Obi Eziegbo. Comes in from Gannon. Not a lot of info on the guy. Comes in as an FCS transfer. But again, if you're ready to start at the Power 4 level after coming up from G5 or FCS or JUCO, you've done what you need to do. You've done a lot of things right. And Eziegbo is no exception to the rule. Real excited to see what he can do on this line. That's begging for a playmaker to step up. That is begging for someone to answer the call for Oklahoma State to have a strong D-line. So there's not all that pressure on the linebackers and the DBs to do their job. If the D-line can step up and Eziegbo can be a big factor there, then it makes their lives so much easier. And everyone around him will appreciate that. So, and with that, let's pass it off to K-State. A little bit of a step back year for K-State, coming in fourth in the Big 12, year 6 under Chris Kleiman. But I think they're ready to climb back to the mountaintop with that spread offense, that 3-3-5 defense. A lot to look forward to if you are a Kansas State fan this year. So with that, let's look at the depth chart. If we look at the O-line first, going to be a little bit below average. They bring in a starter in Easton Kilty from North Dakota. They have Hadley Panzer coming back at center. They have Carver Willis has his fair share of starts, but you'd love to see a more experienced O-line, especially like what OK State has, right? That's something to look forward to. Receiver room is going to be okay as well. You do have Dante Cephas, um, who I did not. I think he's coming from Penn State. I didn't write where he was coming down from. I think he was Penn State from Kent State, if I'm not mistaken. He's he's a 1,000-yard receiver in the past. He's someone you can rely on. It's a little bit top heavy because outside of him, I don't know who your guy is. So I love to see the pieces around Cephas step up. Avery Johnson, same thing. Kind of took over halfway through the year for Will Howard, and assumed to be the full-time starter for K-State moving forward. I'm seeing Heisman odds around this guy. And I mean, if you're going to be starting quarterback at a conference championship finalist team, yeah, you'll be in the Heisman discussion, and we'll see why in a little bit, I think. So, maybe a hint as to what's coming up on in a picture or two. And they do have a strong running back game with DJ Giddens. So he's a 1,000-yard guy, 1,200-yard guy. He's a top 5 guy in the conference. So no concerns there for K-State. On the defense, D-line is going to be a little bit below average. You got Brendan Mott, and that's pretty much it. Again, going to be below average. Brendan Mott is a legit threat on the D end, so no concern on that immediate front for him. But I'd love to see the depth of the other pieces of this line step up in a big way this year. Linebacker room is going to be average. Linebacker room will be kind of good enough. Austin Moore, Desmond Purnell are some big guys you want to look out for. Those are names you want to look at. Those are ones you're going to want to highlight over the course of the year. But it's going to be an average DB room or an average linebacker room for a Kansas State team, or at least from a production standpoint, it's an average DB room or linebacker room. Goddamn, that is ready to step up and make an impact for K-State. Speaking of the DB room, I think from a returning production standpoint, the DB room is the least impressive. They have VJ Payne at safety, Jacob Parrish at corner, Marquise Single at one of their other safeties. So 3 out of 5 is not bad, but it's not super top heavy, but it's not super deep either. It's kind of just right around the middle for everyone, which ends up being a below average DB room when it's all said and done. So really looking forward to seeing who is going to be the one to step up in that room. That should be something that we look forward to as we see this team progress over the course of the year. On offense, my breakout player will be Avery Johnson. So 178 yards passing and 2 TDs against NC State. I think we'll see that in a little bit. And then 90 yards rushing and a 5-touchdown rushing performance against Texas Tech. Now, we love our dual threats QBs in college football, and they win Heismans. So this makes a lot of sense as to why Avery Johnson may be in the Heisman contention when it's all said and done. But let's see him as a passer here. It's like what? On the 11, just gets it out instantly, 50-50 ball right to his guy that he trusts. That's to seal it, right? That puts it up 28-19. So, that's the big type of clutch throws that you need if you are a starting quarterback, especially if you're going to be in a big time environment, in a conference championship game, in a hostile road environment, in the playoffs potentially, and it's really what you want to see from a young kid, especially knowing that he was a true freshman doing that. That's big. If K-State can hold on to this kid and he doesn't get swiped up by somewhere else, K-State's going to be a problem in the Big 12 for the foreseeable future. And on defense, we'll go with Jack Fabris, safety, redshirts freshman. Hasn't played a lot yet, more so as a rotational guy. But we need someone to step up, in that safety role for K-State this year. I think Jack Fabris is that guy. I think he's the young kid that's ready to make a splash for this team, surrounded by a lot of juniors and seniors that are ready to make their mark and win another conference championship. He wasn't there for it. Fabris is hungry. Fabris is ready to make a move, and K-State is going to be the benefactor of that hunger. He's a skilled guy. He's just been a rotational guy so far, redshirt guy, more so special teams. But now that he's going to get that starting spot, he's going to earn it for a reason. That's why he's the youngest guy out there on this defense, because he's ready to make a move. So I'm looking forward to seeing Fabris play. I'm looking forward to seeing how the DBs evolve and grow over the course of the season, and what it takes to take Kansas State to the conference championship game. So, as a recap, and for reference at home, some of these guys are in tiers, right? So I'll go through it one more time. Houston in 16th, that's a tier on its own. I think Houston's the worst team in the Big 12 on their own. BYU 15th, Arizona State 14th. I think you could flip-flop if you needed to. Cincinnati in 13th, Baylor 12th, Colorado 11th. That's a tier of its own. So Cincinnati, Baylor, Colorado, any one of those you could flip around in my eyes. Iowa State, West Virginia, I think you could flip. So Iowa State 10th, West Virginia 9th. I think you could flip those if you wanted to. These next three, Arizona, UCF, TCU, kind of the same thing. Arizona 8, UCF 7, TCU 6. If you want to put UCF in 6th, I'm not going to lose sleep over it. It makes sense. But it's just the way I think it shakes up. And then really outside of K-State, the other four are interchangeable for me. You could see Utah go to the conference championship game. You could see Texas Tech or Kansas go. But I got Utah in 5th, T-Tech in 4th, Kansas at 3rd, and Oklahoma State in 2nd. I think Kansas State is the undisputed number one team in the conference from the regular season perspective so far. But where does that take us in the conference championship? So we have Oklahoma State, we have Kansas State battling it out. I think it's down in Jerry World, down in Arlington. And if that's the case, does K-State keep it moving, or does OK State, kind of get the upset, secure their own playoff spot, and make the most of a fantastic season? Official prediction is K-State's back. I think they're back to winning their conference championship again. I think the two big dogs being out of the way sets it up very nicely for Kansas State to move forward and to be the new king of the Big 12 and to secure a playoff spot for them in their conference moving forward. But those are my thoughts on the Big 12. What are your thoughts? Where am I right? Where am I wrong? Comment down below. Like, subscribe, do whatever you got to do. Thank you for tuning in. Next time we'll be wrapping up the Power 4 conferences. I'll be heading over to the SEC, new look SEC with, again, Texas and Oklahoma are gone here. They'll be over on that SEC preview video. So who's going to win there? Who's going to secure playoff spots? Everything along those lines. Time will tell. But until next time, thanks for checking in to the New Year's 6 podcast. And, we'll be looking forward to covering everything again soon.